Hey, it's Kat. It has been a long time since I have posted a video on YouTube, but here I am today to share with you what I have been using for my planning system for 2022. So the last video I posted on YouTube was in September of 2020, and I was using a Stalogy that was cut down into a standard size, and I was kind of going through my setup. Since then, I then migrated to a Sumkin agenda notebook, and what you're seeing here in the middle is a book that I used for the entire year of 2021. I didn't post anything about this book, but I quickly moved into this larger book with the end of 2020 because I discovered that I really enjoyed the standard size notebook. I am definitely a book-bound girl when it comes to planning. Really proud of myself for sticking to this book. Towards the end of the year, I was starting to look into, what would that next year planner book look like? And I decided to come full around circle back to the Hobonichi Weeks Mega that I have been using for 2022. One of the reasons I moved from a standard size to the Hobonichi Weeks is because of the overall size of the book and the weight. So once I was able to maintain my planning system within one book, I really started to discover what I do and I don't need. And so my biggest thing was with having, a blank notebook that you're kind of starting in the beginning to set up your planner. I was at a point in my life where I really want that setup kind of already done for me. And that's what you kind of get out of the Hobonichi Weeks Mega. So with the Hobonichi Weeks Mega, there is the ability to, tweak a little bit of the weekly spreads and the monthlies, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But ultimately what it came down to is I needed something a little lightweight, still enough pages so that I can all be kind of confined into one space for one book. I'm not a fan of having to switch multiple ones, and I really have I've gotten a point to my planner system. I know what I need, and I really felt like this was going to work for me, and it has so far. And that's where I'd like to kind of come in and share what I've been doing. So with that, the Hobonichi Weeks Mega, I'll just kind of give you a brief overview. So it is a Japanese planner. It's going to include, a yearly, monthly, weekly, and notes section. Hobonichi Weeks Mega has been my everyday carry, so that I use this for personal planning, family planning, anything that is related to my husband, my two sons, myself, my dogs, to-dos, budgeting, note-taking at doctor's appointments, some random journaling. This is really my go-to planner. With the exception of work, that's something that I do have separate from this. There are occasions where I might make a note or two of something that I want to be mindful of that might be a deadline for work, but ultimately this is strictly personal life. So I'll just kind of go through a general flip of how it's looked like for me so far. If you have any questions about decor, feel free to drop a comment below and I can answer those separately. But this is my yearly layout that comes in the book. I haven't really done a whole lot to these two pages. With the exception of highlighting pay dates, and then unfortunately we had a passing in my family, so I had that indicated there. The Calendex is what I'd like to refer to. It is kind of like your whole year in a column view. I use this with some symbol coding, and I have a list here of what I like to keep track in these two pages. And then it quickly goes into the monthlies. I am very heavily relied on my monthly pages. This is the first stop when I go and start the day, or I'm planning out any type of event coming up. This is where I am kind of stopping first before I go into any other section of my book. And I'll just kind of flip through here. You can see very functional for me. I tend to plan with pen first, and then I will go in after the fact and do any color coding that I feel is needed. I do use a color code system and keys, symbols for various appointments just to maximize the use out of the book because the boxes are a lot smaller, and obviously I don't have the freedom to make them bigger or smaller, so I have found a way to keep myself sane and all the information in one place in these smaller monthly pages. So after the monthly, so the Hobonichi Weeks Mega goes and gives you monthly pages all the way through to March of next year. I have done something a little differently where I've laid out the sticker paper to cover up the month, and then I'm starting to brainstorm what I plan for 2023. The next section, it goes into weeks. So my weeklies are very functional. Similar to my monthlies, I will go and write down everything pen to be very functional. I always want to make sure it's functional for me first, and then I decorate afterwards. There are instances where I will use a kit. Sometimes I will lay that down ahead of time because it was a purpose for that kit, whether like this coming week is a back to school for us. So I had purchased this kit a couple months ago. I wanted to make sure I used it right away, so I actually placed it down a month and a half before this week had come up. So I do have an assortment of kits that I use, pen only, and some decor kind of throughout. And I'm kind of just flipping around here just to kind of give you just a high level overview. I know there's a lot of information here, and I could make this a 2-hour video flipping through every single page, but just a high level, it's just to kind of briefly show you like what a week looks like for me. So, this column is where my appointments are. I have this column here that is more like FYI informational. That's not always task specific, but just more like, hey, heads up, this is what's going on today. May or may not have anything specifically I have to do for that. But that's where, if I do, I have a to-do list that I will keep on the right-hand side. I do alternate as far as what I'm showing here. So consistently, my to-dos is always there. I alternate back and forth between some level of budgeting in this spread. I will have a section for weather, to buy, and any happy mail that I'm anticipating that week or that I've ordered, and just keeping track of, kind of like a waiting on list. But that's usually that weekly layout is what looks like for me. This is the current week that are in. Since I felt creative and wanted to use a kit, I had to change it a little bit. But I laid it out in such a way that I knew, these two columns would still be the same. I decided to use this for bills. This is a to-do section. I still have my to buy, my weather, and happy mail. So I moved it around a little bit to make it work. I really wanted to make sure that I wasn't working for the stickers and the stickers were still working for me. That's kind of how I go with my decor. Historically, I would lay everything down with stickers and realize, like, wait, that's not how I want to use it, or it's just, I think I finally have found a logic to my madness when it comes to these spreads. But so just a quick flip of some of the blank sheets. You will see I had purchased this a month or two ago, laid it down because I'm like, I don't want to lose sight of this and have it in sticker storage and never come back or decide that I don't want to use it after all. So I was like, I don't have a choice. I'm laying it down. I laid it down in a way that I knew it would give me some flexibility to change how I wanted to plan that week. But this column here, this page here is really always the same, how I plan out, my appointments and FYI informational. And then here it's just kind of like a puzzle piece. I know kind of like the top 3 or 4 things that I want to keep track of, and I move them around occasionally. Since this sticker kit had habit trackers, I'm not very good at keeping track of habits at all. I try. And every once in a while I see this and I'm like, why did I do this to myself? I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it, because at least by me saying these are the habits that I want to do and I end up not doing it, then that's just something I need to kind of personally take away and reflect on and decide how I want to be more mindful about what habits I'm truly tracking. I think what I tend to do is track things that I don't ever do and I want them to be habits, and then I end up just not making them habits. But all the other stuff that are habits, I don't track. That's just kind of how it is, right? So that's where my weeklies, I had planned out quite a bit for this year. and just do some flips. You know, I have like my trash day is every Monday, early release for my kids. I have some stickers laid out for birthdays already and paydays. I'm a 49er fan, football fan, so I do have that information in here. I'm also, you know, a Phoenix Suns basketball fan, so that was something I had to keep track of earlier in the year. I play fantasy football. I use that all in here as well. So just kind of flipping through, we go into October. There was one more kit that I laid out. And then, shockingly enough, I do have this kit as well. And I did lay down a sticker kit, y'all. I did. Week 50, I laid down the sticker kit because I purchased it. It was on sale, clearance, you know, like an older spread that maybe they were discontinuing. I decided to purchase it now while it's cheap, and I laid it down very quickly before I could decide otherwise not to. And then, so it goes through, and then here's where that last week of the year is in this week's. So with the notes section of this book, this is an extension of my planning system. So heavily in my monthly and my weeklies, always planning. Those two sections of the book are always married with each other. The notes section of my book is going to be anything else that I need that the monthly and weeks don't have to offer, or where I need to be more specific and expand on. Meaning, so, you know, some of us that do bullet journaling, we're familiar with collections. So this is going to be where I keep my collections. This is where I do dailies if I need to do dailies. If there, you know, that important phone call and I need to make a note of that, this is where I do that. Now, the way I marry the two, as far as like, you know, if you're in week 34 and you're using a section of the book, I will do page ranges so that I can quickly refer back to. So like for this week here, week 27, I had, I did write a note here of what page numbers those were in my notes section, so I can quickly refer to that section. I do have an index that I use heavily as well. This is the first page index that kind of comes, or table of contents, as you will, that comes with the book that's already kind of displayed out. People use these very differently. I use it to start the page number that the month begins in, these daily page notes for myself. So if I'm like, okay, I want to look at the month of May in my book, I would go to page 117. That's where I know I started, and I can flip through some pages. I do want to change, I'm thinking about doing something a little differently with tabs. In this section, you'll see I don't have any tabs at all, with the exception of goals and lost collections that I have. And then I have a floating tab on the very bottom of where today is in this book. I'm going with the idea of potentially having some type of a clear indicator of where those months are, but then I don't find it fully necessary. Maybe at the end of the year when I try to archive and put this book away, I may highlight that out. But otherwise, I think, you know, this has worked well for me. I have, you know, the page numbers here, and then here I actually have a little bit more detailed index. So I have the pages all the way from 100 to, 1 all the way to 215. And I would quickly write down what that maybe collections was. If it's grayed out, those are just a daily notes page. If it's maybe it's a highlighted daily notes page, and then I have something written out, that's just to call out, like maybe a doctor's appointment for myself. You know, we'd gone to a wedding, I made notes of that, so that was that. For that page, I titled it. The whole page wasn't about the wedding, but that was just something that stood out that day, so I wanted to just have it, you know, right in front of me here when it comes to this list. I have used this quite a bit this year, so that's something that I'll definitely continue for the new year. This was an index, is something that I did use in my Sumkin Agenda notebook last year, and that worked really well. And so I wanted to make sure I kept that through in this book. Now, one of the things that I struggled with, and I think a lot of people could relate to this, is when I had purchased this book, and used it all the way towards the end of the year, and then you purchase the new one, and there's this weird sense of like anxiety or overthinking the process of like, you know, especially with the notes section, when you're like, okay, I want to get started, I don't know how to, or like what that first page should be. I need to migrate all of this information, but I don't know how to place it. Some people have a very thought out system where they're maybe doing collections, you know, within a certain page range in your Hobonichi Weeks. For me, when it came down to it, I did not want to fear using the book, because it's for me. Ultimately, it's for me. I shouldn't, right? I decided after I did my index, I was like, you know what? It's December. I want to start using this book right away. Let me just start a migrations note page. So these first two is everything that I was thinking through. I had a collections to move, collections to start, reference collections I was thinking about, and then I had to do a quick migrate brain dump because there was so much in here that I wanted to continue on here. So this was like my platform of, you know, brain dumping everything planning related, and then started going into using it functionally for the month of December. And that's, you know, what I did here. And then quickly after that, so because I started this in December, and it was like, well, this is technically, you know, 2022 planner, the first, you know, the first couple of pages are December. So like, where does 2022 really didn't start until, sorry, here I'm just trying to be mindful of what I'm flipping through here. Didn't really start until the 63, sorry, didn't start until page 63. So what I did with my setups, because I have collections in here, it was like, okay, the first it was my index, and then I had, you know, migration notes, and then I had the December. And then as you know, December was wrapping up, I was like, okay, I want to start my collections for the new year, everything that I want, before I start to have like my daily pages or, you know, free notes section. So after that last, you know, page of December, then I actually had my collections. So these are actually financial collections that I have, you know, booked off. I have them paper clipped together, obviously for a reason, but that's where I immediately start to go into my daily pages for the month, for the new year. And then, you know, all the way through to today. Right, so those are just the things that I wanted to talk about today, and obviously give you an update, let you know kind of where I've been and what I've been using. I'm really excited to kind of be back on YouTube again. If there's questions that you guys have, or anything specific that you want to know, even about either my Stology or my Sumkin Agenda Notebook or my weeks, I'm more than happy to go through any details with you. Videos from here on out will more likely just kind of tie back to the Hobonichi Weeks. Like I said, everyday carry, it's my main purpose planner. But if any of that interests you, let me know. Feel free to comment below to go into details with any of the parts of the book that may interest you. Feel free to reach out to me, and if you have questions. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you soon.